Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Johnston, Managing Director of Homes for Harrogate Letting Agency, and today I'm with Chris Luscombe of Luscombe Gray Solicitors. Hi Chris.
Hi Sarah.
So Chris is an expert in property litigation, which obviously involves letting agents sometimes, as we have landlords whose main concerns are rent arrears and possibly serving notice on bad tenants. Obviously it's not the ideal, it's not what we want to happen, but it does happen. So today Chris is going to help answer a few questions for us and hopefully give us some hints and tips that you might find useful as a landlord. Thank you for coming along, Chris.
No, thanks for having me.
So I know that setting up a tenancy correctly is the best way to avoid any problems in the future. I hear horror stories. It's mostly because a landlord's rented to a friend without references. They don't know what how to rent guide is, an energy performance certificate, or any of the problems that not serving those documents might cause. So from our point of view, setting up at the beginning is vital. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I think the landlord and tenant relationship is a very important relationship. There are strict regulations in place to protect tenants, and a specific reason for that, and that reason is that the government wants tenants to be treated fairly. Now, that can pose problems for a landlord, and a landlord has to comply with strict legal regulations, and they need to make sure they've got the right tenant in there who's not going to cause them problems. So it's a good idea for a landlord to set up strict procedures and policies from the outset and follow them. And the best way to do that is to employ the service of a letting agent who can do all that for them. A letting agent can carry out references and checks with credit agencies, previous employers, and also previous landlords. A letting agent's generally got a good feel for a tenant, so when they speak to them and meet them, they can feed back on how they found them, and they can report back to the landlord. The letting agent can also ensure that the tenant enters into a written agreement, which is vital, that governs the terms of the occupation and tells you what the tenant can and can't do and what your legal rights and remedies are. It's also important that the letting agent ensures that all the gas certificates, etc., are served correctly.
Yeah.
And I think it's vital that the letting agent looks after the deposit as well and make sure it's received, paid into a scheme, and the relevant documentation served on a tenant. Also inventory, the letting agent can arrange the inventory as well. So it's vital, I think, that the letting agent's there to ensure that your policies are followed.
Yeah, because there's a lot of landlords aren't always up to date on current legislation, whereas it's obviously our job to be. So at Homes for Harrogate, we take quite a personal approach with our tenants and our landlords. So I know, for example, if things do go wrong and there are rent arrears, I'll quite happily send a text to one of our tenants. Or I think if you've got that personal relationship, it is easier to broach the questions about why is your rent late, is it a one-off, and managing that going forward. How would you suggest that a landlord manages rent arrears?
Yeah, I think that's a great approach actually, because you need to form a great relationship with your tenant, and that's best done via a letting agent. If there's a letting agent who's the go-between, who the tenant gets on well with, then a tenant won't want to let the letting agent down. They'll probably let them know if they can't pay the rent, or they'll want to pay the rent because they want that relationship to continue. And it's important. It's not easy for a landlord, especially when you've got more than one property, to see what payments are coming in, when and where. And that's where the letting agent's worth their weight in gold, really. They can see when a missed payments comes in, send a text message. If that doesn't have the desired effect, make a call, take a note of the call. If that still doesn't work, then send a letter. And ultimately, it may come to issuing legal proceedings, etc. But if you've got your house in order and a letting agent to manage the process properly, it makes it a lot easier.
So obviously we don't ever want to get to the point where we have to serve notice on a tenant and have legal proceedings. I know that obviously a landlord can complete the forms themselves, their letting agent can do it for them, but there is a massive benefit in using experts, expert letting agents, expert solicitors. So somebody like yourself, some landlords might be wary about paying for it when they could do it themselves, but what would you say the benefits of using somebody like yourself for legal proceedings in this sort of circumstance might work?
Well, I think both letting agents and solicitors are experts, and it's very easy to look at a piece of paper and think, I could do that myself, but you wouldn't operate on yourself, you wouldn't do your own plumbing, so don't do your own legal work.
You'd hope not.
No, absolutely. And I think a good way of dealing with it is looking at what can go wrong. And actually, the costs can be far greater if you serve a Section 21 notice that is invalid, and you wait for over 2 months, you try and issue proceedings and the courts say, sorry, you're not able to do that. And then there's a loss of rent, potentially serving another notice that's correct this time. You lose 4 months rent, maybe 6 months rent. So it's cost saving ultimately to do that. One way of dealing with it would be to employ the service of the solicitor to review your procedures, advise you, and then set up a bespoke procedure for you to follow in relation to your properties and liaise closely with your letting agent. You can set up letters, standard letters to send if rent's outstanding, that type of thing. But I just think it's worthwhile having an expert involved.
Yeah, you don't want it thrown out of court because you haven't filled out the paperwork correctly.
No, absolutely. And another good point actually as well is you can be liable. For example, if you have a tenant and they don't have a right to rent in the UK, then you could be subject to a fine. Well, a letting agent can advise you that, and a solicitor can advise you that and make sure that action isn't taken against you. The same with the deposit scheme.
Lovely. So to all our landlord clients out there who might be watching, what sort of things can you help them with, Chris? What services can you offer our landlord clients?
I can review your procedures, I can assist with serving notices, I can deal with possession proceedings as well. Any aspect of property litigation, Luscombe is able to help.
Lovely. So what are your contact details then, Chris, if somebody wants to get in touch?
Contact us at www.luscombegray.com or call me on 07900 985 712.
Lovely. Thank you so much. You've been a great help.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.